Welcome to the Environmental Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Grady, and I'm here to bring you interviews with industry leaders in the environmental industry with a goal of providing you with information about industry trends, climate change, future energy, circular economy, digital technologies, and service providers transforming the industry. And today we have one of those service providers transforming the industry, Bill Hunter, president of Terra Nova Solutions. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, great. I'm glad you got to join us. Hey, before we get in, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how you started Terra Nova Solutions back in December of 18.
Sure. So a little bit about myself. Then I'm 43 this year. I have a fantastic wife and three great kids that make my professional life possible. I live in upstate New York, just south of Lake Ontario, and we're celebrating this morning what we hope to be our last snowstorm of the year with definable snow on the ground. We're sick of winter. I've worked in the environmental industry my entire career, right after college, beyond a small stint as a bond trader in Chicago. I've always worked on the contractor side of the industry and have worked closely with engineering firms in the industry, growing up with several engineering firms, so to speak. Throughout my career, Sean, I've worked for a variety of types of companies, both in terms of size and ownership,
right?
From small family-run lifestyle businesses to small public companies to large private equity group companies, and feel that in general I've learned a thing or two about how to build a good company in our space, offering the service lines that we've been involved with.
No, that's good. I mean, there's so many things and so many avenues you can go into in the environmental industry. And well, tell us a little bit. I mean, so when did you have that moment, like, that you realized you really enjoy working in this industry and it's like, this is where I belong? Tell me like when you figured that out.
Yeah. I was lucky in that I entered the environmental industry in the Boston area at the tail end of the Big Dig, which produced, a wonderful market for a very long time. And the 1980 tank regs were still, had their funding, and there was still a lot of tank removal and soil work at that time. And started in the Boston area within the 495 corridor, and felt like, I had an opportunity to work with some really talented people who were among the pioneers of the environmental service industry in the New England area, and had the benefit of some great mentors. And I think, Sean, once I realized that I could have fun at work, wear jeans, be outside, be entrepreneurial, and feel good every day, that I was actually cleaning up stuff that
making a difference.
Yeah, making a difference. I'm a big outdoorsman. Love the concept of being able to clean up areas that I have so much fun recreating in. And I knew that the contractor side was for me, because I enjoyed the doing of the work instead of the engineering and permitting and AutoCAD, stuff. I like the commercial end of the business.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's it's kind of like in my experience was too, where I started out as a regulator, and I was kind of just watching projects and paper coming into the agency and reviewing things. And I was like, man, I want to do something. I'm tired of just telling people what to do. I want to do something. So that's why I went to consulting, because I was like, I want to get in the middle of it and help design it and manage it and, oversee it and, do it. It was great. So it's good for me.
Did you get enough, Sean? Did you get close enough to the jobs you felt?
Oh, really absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I designed some really great remedial systems, really, developed and implemented a lot of, environmental programs, especially around some waste management programs and for clients, and software and all kinds of good stuff. I've been doing pretty well. So, so, hey, let's talk a little bit about what it was like for you when you kind of like rose up the ranks and really started taking on some key leadership roles in some of these companies that you were in.
Yeah, sure. So I was also lucky in that I was afforded a heck of an opportunity at a company called Optech Environmental Services and located in upstate New York that was part of OBG back in the very early 90s. And we were a industrial and remediation contractor. I got an opportunity for a leadership role there at an early age, and again, had the benefit of working with some solid, leadership, and had probably been a little bit over my skis at points as a young man, but afforded me the ability to learn from some really talented folks. We sold Optech Environmental to NRC in 2013. And Sean, that was, I think exactly what we needed at Optech as a contractor. We find that there's a fire siren going on off here in
I hear
New
that.
York.
It's all right. I got trains that go by too.
At least I know what's happening with the fires in the area. So we find that there's growth thresholds that happen, at least on the contractor side of the industry, that can be challenging to get above without some sort of outside stimuli or capitalization. And
Right.
generally those thresholds are around 10 million, 35 to 40 million, and then another one around 150 million. And while at Optech, we were right at that $40 million threshold, and it could not have been better for our growth.
Right.
Access to better talent, systems, tools, resources.
So when you were there, were you involved in any acquisition type activities?
Yeah, we did 9 more acquisitions while part of NRC from 2013 to 2018.
Wow,
A wide variety of companies, Sean, ranging from a killer group in Alaska all the way down to companies in San Diego, Maine, and Florida. So 9 wonderful acquisitions, all which were really complementary to NRC's base business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what was the integration like with those companies? I got to imagine there was some uphill challenges from time to time in that process.
Yeah, as with any integration, there were certainly challenges with pulling groups together. I think it gets easier in some respects with the size of the company. If there's already shared services like accounting systems and a well-defined HSC system, fleet maintenance programs in place, these are largely immigration and customization processes, right? Bring them into the existing folds. Where we have been focused at Terra Nova is a little bit smaller, the lower middle market, companies that aren't quite as large, that are more at that $10 million, $15 million threshold, growth threshold. So a lot of the integration tasks are installation of certain features of the business.
So when you're in the process of looking at a company, right? I mean, what do you guys how do you go about evaluating a good target that you want to pursue to acquire? I mean, what's involved in this process? Kind of, break it down for me a little bit.
Sure. So, I think if all the ingredients are there for an acquisition like that and the fit is there, I think first and foremost, we look for a fit with the current service offerings that we're performing. Maybe more importantly is a cultural fit, with our staff, whether that be geography or a type of work or type of customer base. Once we determine that there's a fit, within our business, we start, with some financial elements, largely relating to earnings, how profitable the company is, but followed very quickly by team, customers, fleet, and process. And really in that order, Sean, especially at the sizes of the companies that we are interested in for acquisition candidates, immediately after the recurring nature of the business and its profitability, we look to the quality of the team.
So when you're looking at the team, you're looking at the leadership of that existing company, right? Like, who's at the helm there, what kind of the quality of the individuals are really leading that company, what kind of skills they have. Is that kind of like part of the equation here, part of the, you know, I guess the investigation?
Yeah, those are certainly things we look at. We pay attention to who is, actually front and center in front of clientele. That's certain
From the
companies handle
sales?
that
Yeah,
feature a
from the
little bit
sales?
differently.
Yeah.
We look primarily at where the client relationships lay. In some organizations, the strength of those client relationships rests at different levels, either sometimes at the truck driver level, sometimes at the project manager level, sometimes at the VP level. So
Mhm.
we certainly look to that. One of the, we look at tenure. You spend a lot of time, Sean, looking at tenure and turnover. We're looking for stable organizations that, have long cultured relationships with their clients. What we find is that, for companies that are in that, say sub $25 million range, and their owners are in their either late 50s or early 60s, unless there's a really well-defined transition plan, for the business as these folks, seek to retire. The primary concern is the quality of the staff and their well-being after a transition. So for some
Yeah.
of the same reasons, we look to the team almost exclusively in the early stages of our diligence.
Yeah, see who's there, see who's the meat killers, so to speak, on the sales side, who's got those good client relationships. What is that differentiating service, right? That company is providing that keeps them sticky to a client. I'm sure you're probably doing that, right?
Yeah, we're doing that for sure. And then, I would say the second biggest area that we look at is just quality of service delivery, with health and
Yeah,
safety being the top feature there. In the part of the market where we operate, Sean, our types of clients, the recurring part of the business, which, from an investor standpoint is the sweetest part of our business. Having an excellent safety system is just baseline, right? There is no room anymore at the top end of the industry for subpar safety performance.
right.
So
Yeah. No,
it's a deal killer right off the bat.
safety is such a huge deal. I mean, I would even shy away from a company who's like had a fatality, in a recent history, right? Wouldn't that kind of scare you away if a target you're looking at had a fatality or something recently? I mean, that would be like, oh man, that's gonna be problematic for us on our our EM our our TRIR scores.
Certainly would affect the TRI and our decision, our risk strategy, Sean, for sure. But what we're looking for is actual evidence of actual implementation of the safety program. Behavior-based safety systems,
Yeah,
how they tie into our system. So that's the big part on the operations. Because our industry is very fragmented. There's lots of folks in our space who are doing what we're doing as environmental service providers, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is. So
yeah,
generally, there's lots of opportunity for growth in our space in terms of fit with what we do, right? The technologies haven't grown exponentially over the last 20 years or so. Generally, the
sure.
same means and methods that were being used outside of a couple, improvements overall are being used now today.
Well, let's move on just a little bit, but we may come back to some of this conversation in a bit. But let's talk about this. Like, when you decided to start Terra Nova Solutions, how important was it for you to rely on all that experience that you gained over all those acquisitions, all that? I mean, all that the transition you'd been through, the roles you previously played. How did that benefit you when you started Terra Nova Solutions?
It informed really all of our strategies, Sean. With each acquisition that I've been involved with, um, we learn things with each one. Sometimes we learn them over and over again. We see the same sorts of
Darn it,
things
we knew that.
So, I've done a decent job of recording and memorializing those lessons learned, and was able to put together a playbook that, I think, would work. It's funny, when I mentioned to my wife that I was about to walk away from a perfectly good job to, go do this on my own with some investors, she said, "How is it going to be any different than some of the challenges that you've seen, in the past?" And what I told her is that, we were going to be the employer of choice in our secondary markets. We are kind of focused geographically for our day-to-day business in what I call secondary markets, which are those that are about an hour and a half away from any U.S. city that would have a National League football team. Yeah. That's kind of where we're focused. There's a strong market there in a lot of places, and being the employer of choice in those secondary markets is one of the keys to our success and what we've been doing.
Oh, that's good. I mean, I can only imagine the experiences you can rely upon to really help make those key decisions, in building your business has probably been invaluable. Talk a little bit about the types of services Terra Nova Solutions provides and where.
Sure. So we have four major core service lines. Our service delivery is organized really around four main groups, although we perform them in all three regions.
Probably interchangeably too, right?
Yeah, because they're relatively adjacent. So the first one is industrial maintenance services. This is largely pneumatic fleets and hydraulic fleets, cleaning various structures, vessels, transporting regulated equipment or materials, rather, a fair amount of what I call heavy industrial hydroblasting, air knifing, things of that nature, sewer cleanings. The second area is waste management. We process in locations our own waste, both self-perform and broker waste services, and intertwine that business line into our industrial and remediation service line, which produces some nice efficiencies for our clientele. About a third of our business is remediation work, and we're more focused on the geotechnical side of that business, the Insitu, the capping, containment, nearshore dredging, some demolition work. Most of Terra Nova's senior leadership team is very experienced in that space, because that's where they came up through the ranks in our industry, and we perform remediation work on a national basis. And then a much smaller percentage, under 5% of our revenue, is emergency response work, or what I like to call short fuse, hurry up and get here. I've got a
very event-based, right. Yeah, like the adrenaline-based projects is what I call them.
That's right. And those are performed. We're not among the top. We're not an OSRO. We're not among the top landside or marine, response contractors, but we do it for the clients we're generally working in their facilities.
No, that's good to hear. I mean, that's takes a special breed of individual to be one of those ER guys. I've been on a couple of responses, and man, it's amazing what you can do on little bit of sleep to respond to a spill on adrenaline. Boy, I tell you. Okay, so let's talk about your waste program a bit. Tell us a little bit about what type of facilities you have. Are you permitted anywhere? What type of offering do you have in that space?
Yeah, on the self-perform, our fixed facility side, Sean, we maintain a non-hazardous bulk waste processing facility in High Point, North Carolina, which we acquired with the acquisition of Zebra Environmental and Industrial Services, from Amy and David Tedder, who were the former founders and owners of A&D Environmental, a regional company in the Southeast. We're processing oily waters, oily sludge out of that facility. We also have a 10-day there, so move waste in and out of the 10-day. I think the biggest benefit to our clientele and our partners in High Point is that we're especially effective at industrial service work in North Carolina
Okay.
because we're processing our own waste. There are
Sure.
certainly others that do a better job moving, not, has drums and, processing, lab packs, things of that nature. Where we can affect the most value on projects is where we're performing industrial services and managing the waste that our head shed on the way home.
Sure. Yeah, kind of like self turn or self perform turnkey. Yeah, that's really good. And is that the only location you have a permitted facility, or in the other locations you operate? Are you just kind of brokering out the waste to third parties? Is that what you're doing then?
Yeah, that's right. So, that because of our position in the waste market in the Carolinas, we're constantly along the critical path of waste projects. And
Mm-hmm.
in those cases, our goals are to be helpful to our clientele's waste needs, whether we're performing the waste or utilizing our network and transportation equipment to do it. So we
Mm-hmm.
have shown a big transportation fleet of tankers of various sizes, large vacuum equipment that we move waste and take it to wherever is best commercially beneficial to the client.
Yeah.
We expanded that service line when we bought Pinnacle Environmental Industrial Services in December of
Okay.
last year out of Greenville.
Okay.
And Pinnacle, their total waste management program is focused on managing all of the waste for a particular
Yeah.
plant or entity. And in order to do that properly, you have to use some support.
Oh yeah, a lot of third parties, right? Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back into a little bit of this strategic acquisition approach. I mean, so it sounds to me like you got one asset. You're thinking, okay, I'm still going to continue to grow the business. Are you considering targeting and looking for other types of permitted assets in key regions to help you expand and grow your footprint?
We are. We are. That's a core tenet, Sean, of our strategy. I don't want to give away the farm too much, but the cat's kind of already out. That's what we're doing. And the reason for that is that we think there's a big efficiency pickup and value pickup to contractors that aren't beholden, at least on the non-haz side, to
Yeah.
getting rid of the waste they generated on that day's project.
Right.
In the remediation side of the business, it's a little bit different because you're dealing more with bulk material, and now nowadays the trends are more in situ remedies. So we're seeing less waste leave our larger projects, more capping and containment and stabilization type projects. But
Yep.
at least for the smaller industrial projects, that's the efficiency pickup that we're after.
Okay. So you're thinking more in the Northeast, up towards New York is kind of in that area of the country, and maybe I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of curious to I mean, you've got a really good spot there, right there in the center, in a sense, on the East Coast, but North Carolina, South Carolina. But I mean, a little more footprint up in the Northeast would be pretty nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Sean. I mean, our strategic plan identifies, that core East Coast manufacturing market, which is where most of our industrial remediation and emergency response waste work is.
Yeah. Right.
From, upstate New York down to Florida within about 350 miles of the coastline. That's kind of our target strategy. We're building what I call a super regional contractor in that space, and it's focused on the industrial core in that region.
That's great.
So
That sounds like you got a lot of, that's kind of really that's your blueprint for growth. I mean, that's how you're going to grow fast, right? And be able to kind of, you know, move up in the size that you want to get to, by acquiring a few of these other companies.
yeah, M&A is certainly a robust part of our growth plan. We also have, which comes from every acquisition that we do, a number of really cool organic growth initiatives afforded by either new relationships or new equipment capabilities, entering into new markets, cross-selling. That's the stuff that is my favorite part of my day-to-day.
Yeah, you see what you can expand and grow with that existing asset you have, right? I mean, that's kind of when if I was in your shoes and I'm looking at, an acquisition that you just acquired or you're about to acquire, in my mind, I would be looking at the full list of customers that they have, and what's the value and revenue we do with each one of those customers, or they do with each one of those customers, and where can we expand that and grow it to the next level, right? And who's got those key relationships. I think I'm assuming that's kind of all part of your equation when you're digging into how do we grow from what we currently have to take it to the next level.
Yeah, and Sean, more specifically, how can we inspire the staff on both
Oh,
sides of the deal to do that and be excited to do that?
right.
That is the key value prop. And as you can imagine, sometimes that's more of an art than a science. We've been very fortunate to be able to leverage that because one thing I noticed with M&A is that there's never a lack of good ideas when we're negotiating an offer or have signed a deal up or planning for integration. It turns into real work after you make the acquisition. You're doing the integration. There's lots of things to do, and it's either put up or shut up time. So
Yeah.
and the staff that you have in the team are the ones that are doing it. So that's what we focus on.
So a while back, I want to say, I don't know, at least 3, 4 weeks ago, you wrote a nice little blog about don't kill the mascot. Let's talk about the mascot, and, you describe your experience over the past couple of years in M&A with, especially with these smaller businesses, is why is it important not to kill the mascot and change the company name and the brand too soon before you integrate? So talk a little bit about why is that so important?
Yeah, so I wrote that blog, Sean, and named it the way I did because I'm an outdoorsman, and I feel like that's what's been done in some of these deals that I've seen. And I think the tendency to change the name too quickly after an acquisition comes from a genuine spot in managers' hearts that they've got a lot of stuff to do. Right? There's a ton of things to do. There's a ton of systems to get coalesced. There's a ton of reporting to get right. There's a ton of synergies to get done, and the rebranding and the communications to customers is a relatively easy one. When compared to merging H&S systems and getting on the same page operationally, and
Yeah.
all the administrative stuff. So. I think it forgets, though, that part of what made the company great is the culture of the company, and that most companies of the size that we pursue as acquisition candidates are totally and fully behind their brand, right, and proud of their company. And I think that our client base is familiar enough with M&A because it's so prevalent in our industry anyway, that they get it. They understand that this stuff happens, and generally, if done well, the company is stronger after the acquisition. So
Usually that is the case, and that's hopefully the way it happens, right?
that's right. That's right. So what we've done is, what's worked well for us, both at Terra Nova and under other hard hats, is to undergo about a year to 2 year process of making sure that the customers are aware, tying the two companies together from a marketing standpoint, a branding standpoint, and even a nomenclature standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And getting some name repetition and some familiarity among the change, and doing it over time. And
Sure.
we've seen, when handled right, that maintains the enthusiasm for the business and transfers the culture to the mothership.
No, that's good. I mean, I can imagine when you're doing M&A and you bring a new client or new companies in. I mean, like you said about the systems can be challenging, right? I mean, you're on different platforms a lot of times, and how do you merge all these platforms under, to a new unified platform? Maybe there's a business decision that goes on that's like, well, we probably need to scrap all the platforms. We're going to just get something new because what we have is not going to work.
Yeah.
I
It's
can
really
see you've
interesting that
gone through that process. I can see in your eyes.
yes, yes. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. I mean, it's especially prevalent, I think, with M&A is the presumption that the acquiring company's systems are superior to the acquired, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
they're going to work better for
Yeah.
the
There's a big
combined entity.
assumption there, right?
That's right. And most times it's because that's just what's being used. What we found is that as long as you're open to the possibility that the acquired companies has some shared services that might be of value, you may learn about a better way to do it. So our last deal, Sean, there was two major things that Pinnacle was doing much better than Terra Nova. They were managing their record keeping on waste with a program that was much better than what we were doing, and managing expenses and interdivisional scheduling. Specifically, the software tools that were being used for those functions were better. And we've adopted them at Terra Nova, and it allowed our staff, I think, to continue to champion, some parts of the business that they had grown from just a little bit, right? That
Yeah.
they had installed at their company. So
No, that's great. I mean, and then that gives them more feel like they're a little more invested in the firm as they move in because they're like, hey, this is how we did it, and here's how we've been doing it. Let me teach you, and it gives them a good reason to, you know, uh, bond with new people in the organization.
a chance to lead and to
Yeah,
showcase something that they built. So that's another thing we look for. Whenever we can find something like that, where there's an opportunity to leverage that with the staff, that's a big part of our
absolutely.
own.
How's the sales kind of the scheme and the sales has that differed? Like the sales approach to you know from company to company, and then having to adjust to, well, they had a really good sales model here compared to our sales model here. you know have you seen the opportunities to adopt or improve or strengthen the overall sales approach to how do people get compensated for sales and things like that? Has that been a part of your equation or your process?
Yeah, I mean, so first on the people side, it's important to have consistency as we grow, and things like being compensated for sales, like bonus programs and incentive programs. It's real important to be consistent with those, as you add new companies to the fold. So what we've done is we set those programs up when we were small and not complicated, so that they were easy to build upon as we've done acquisitions and grown, which we've done explosively, over the last 2 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't really have a lot of mismatches there, Sean. What we find is that the biggest tasks to be had on the sales side are being focused on the organic initiatives that are most likely to pay off, right? As I mentioned, normally there's never a lack of good ideas with the proper resources and deployment of capital to pursue. It's really honing in on the best ones. And what we've learned is that you need buy-in on those strategies, those growth strategies, all the way to the field level. The truck drivers, the technicians, the equipment operators, they have to have a voice in that process and inform that process. So we've used that philosophy, and knock on wood, so far all the strategic growth initiatives that we've set forth to do, we've done exactly what we said we were going to
Well,
do.
talk a little bit about your health and safety program as a company a bit, because it's such a key component of anyone in the business looking to hire a contractor. You know, yeah, I mean, in my line of work, it's like one of the first things we ask is, well, let's see your safety record and get you safety approved before we even can get a contract with you, type thing. Talk about the mindset and the performance of the business as around safety for you guys and what your program looks like.
Sure. So, Sean, what you just described, in terms of the barriers to entry in our industry with safety, that's been around for 25 years now, right? It's not 50 years, it's not 40 years, but it's somewhere between,
Yeah.
20 and 25 years or so. Meaning the absolute insistence on not having contractors who have, bad safety records in industrial facilities doing work. So overall, the industry has evolved, and the staff who work within it in the field, which are the ones that are most prone to safety risk, have understood how to do work at that level. But what we find is that the safety program is about changing culture, speed, and quality, and sometimes in that order. As we're growing as contractors, and the most effective way that we're able to communicate to our employees on our commitment to safety is with constant communication coming from somebody other than the safety director all the time. So myself, general managers, we think that most of the way that we've been able to be behavioral in our safety performance is communicating it over and over and over again, because we constantly have new people who are entering our system.
Yeah, I was going to say, new staff coming in, turnover happens on a routine basis, especially on seasonal type work. You've got to bring in new people and keep them trained, and make sure that they're performing, the way that the clients expect and the company expects. And I'm sure there's a lot of a lot involved with maintaining that expectation. And so you've got a kind of a director of safety for the company, it sounds like, right? And then
We
you have,
do, yeah.
yeah,
Director of Health and Safety, James Sizemore, sits in High Point, North Carolina, and other site safety officers and divisional safety staff that report to him. I think it's worth noting an observation from the contractor side. The industry has supported the investments in health and safety that they need to hire contractors who are safe, right?
yeah,
Their own forms are requiring that we provide our JSAs. The health and safety plans and submittals, like the structure is there, right? So from our
yeah,
perspective, we then have been tasked with following those rules, right?
right,
In a large way, right? And having a culture that allows for people to slow down and to document safety and to make it a forefront. But, Sean, it is my primary responsibility as the leader of this organization. It's what keeps me up at night every day. We run, at any point, any given day, we're running 27 to 28 tankers down the road, at high rates of speed, carrying waste and heavy
yeah,
equipment operation. We're in a dangerous business.
hmm,
But, we make a big investment in our safety program. Lots of folks are doing that now in our industry. That's the good news, is that's the baseline,
yeah.
as it should
No, I
be.
mean, yeah, and it should be, because we all want to go home safe and see our family, and don't want to come home hurt, right? So,
Right.
heaven forbid we have some problems or an accident that really causes some problems. Well, hey, let's change subjects a bit, because being there's so much going on in the industry right now. I mean, think about the topics that are really, catching all the headlines in our industry right now. Let's talk about a few of them, like circular economy, sustainability, PFAS, emerging contaminants. What are some of the things that you see from the contractor perspective that is a shift in the way, or the way the industry has acted in the past? I mean, like this something's changed, and so things are different now. What do you see the opportunities for you?
Sure. So, besides what I mentioned, Sean, a few minutes ago about the emergence of in situ remedial remedies for some of our remediation sites, as opposed to hog and haul. So that's certainly a trend that we're seeing, but that's been happening for some time now.
Yeah.
I'd say the other one is likely the improvement of the sustainability market. from my perspective, I always had considered up until about 8 to 9 years ago, the green sustainability market as a really big, wonderful market with not a lot of funding.
Yeah, they were all talking no show, right? They just didn't want to spend the money on it.
Big hat, no cattle type of
Yeah,
thing.
right. Exactly.
We were seeing that we were getting involved in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s with some lead buildings where we'd really have to watch where we sourced material or could take material leaving the site, and truck idle times and things of that nature, and a few. But that was really done for universities and utilities, right?
Yeah.
Among the top corporate sponsors in the space. And now we're seeing on our end, we're seeing some of our top manufacturing clients and oil and gas clients making moves and setting requirements for both them and us on the
Right.
sustainability side. And we're thrilled to see some of that come aboard.
You're right. I think so many clients and companies in the industry right now are really putting out there that they're going to be, zero net carbon by 2035, or, reduce 50% of our carbon footprint by 2025 or 2030 or whatever. Right? I mean, there's a lot of people making some bold moves and bold statements out there. Um, like for instance, just this week, I read an article that the executives at Shell are no longer going to be compensated by production of oil and gas type revenue. It's going to be tied to how big of an impact did they make with reducing greenhouse gas. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wow. I mean, who does that? That no one that they're like the first company in the industry, I think, that's really done that. They're tying bonuses to executives to how well they can achieve, greenhouse gas emission reductions. That's
Putting their money where their mouth is, Sean.
exactly, that's true leadership, and couldn't be happier to work for a company like that. I mean, that's just awesome. But man, I tell you, there's going to be some really interesting trends happening, and seeing some things happen in the industry coming up where you know, um, I think there's a lot of opportunities for companies like yourself to really fit in a space that's going to help people achieve these goals.
I think so. I think it takes a bit of ambidexterity. It takes the ability to have a good sense of the market and be able to handle waste streams of certain types. I think that's going to be a big part of our growth in that area. And what we're finding is that the pharmaceutical industry has joined the electric utility industry and the higher education industry in sustainability measures. We're finding it in the marine industry, fairly robustly. We're seeing a lot of investments in the cruise line and ports and idle times and waste processing systems. And then, I think, probably we're most excited about the higher level attention that sustainability is getting among our manufacturing base.
Yeah.
Folks who make things from everything from dog food to shingles, right?
Sure.
That's a big thing for us.
No, that's right. I think you're going to see a lot of focus. Not that I don't think the industry was really trying to push, to be more sustainable, and because everybody realizes there's a benefit there, but now I think there's going to be a more concerted effort, and I think even if it costs a tad more, people are going to take the choice of reducing greenhouse gas versus the easier, cheaper way of just maybe landfilling, because it's the easiest way. When if there's another alternative that gives me a better greenhouse gas, credit or score, they're going to go that route for maybe a
Right.
couple dollars more. I think that's what's going to happen. So that's pretty good. Let's talk a little bit about your in situ, remedial expertise, and what are you guys doing in that space? What types of media and solutions have you been, successful at deploying, and what types of, I guess, groundwater challenges have you been addressing for clients?
Yeah. So we still see Sean, that our remediation industry overall, especially the top end of it, there's still a lot of excavation and landfilling going on, whether it be has and non-has.
Yeah, they'll get that
And
source removal, get it out.
yeah, but we're finding that among the top end of the industry, either well-funded or with the best engineers assigned to the jobs, that we're seeing more in situ remedies that are being prescribed. You know, in areas where it can be coupled with deed restrictions, we're seeing a fair amount of capping and containment projects, either before or after a slurry wall has been put in place, generally shallow ones. We are not among the top geotechnical contractors in the country, but we compete relatively often on some of the more simple geotechnical projects. And certainly in urban areas where there's not enough room to open cut things, we're seeing more capping and containment style projects. Yep. We've been fairly active with soil mixing projects, either soil mixing and injections. Oftentimes with excavation supports for the same reasons that we perform the stabilization projects. Most of that work is being delivering blast furnace slag, Portland cement, hydrogen peroxide, or a whole slew of other reagents that we work closely with our engineering teams to develop.
Sure. No, that's great. So you've got some good field experience, and they know how to deploy the solutions effectively and get it injected, so you've got some good experience there with some teams that can help deliver those services.
Yeah, Sean, and the higher end level end of that, the engineering, we're generally relying on our clientele, that we're working for to handle that piece of it. We bring the practical information, the equipment, the constructability review. Most of our geotechnical work is done design build or with central tenets of design build, so we get a chance to perform bench scale tests and try things out first and find the right recipe. That's worked well for us.
Okay, good. So we talked a little bit about your waste disposal management support and total waste management. You've got a couple facilities, or you got your one facility there in North Carolina, right?
That's correct.
And then you've got a bit of some ER response capabilities for your preferred clients that you're pretty close to. You're doing a lot of industrial cleaning, and you're doing a lot of hauling and some remedial work. So I mean, you're kind of like that perfect, remedial contractor. That's the local guys who can get out and be responsive, cost effective, reliable, do good work, make things happen. So as you look down the road here, and literally, you guys are still like a baby company. Really, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, right? You guys are still babies here, but you got a good mix, and you got some good locations already. You got 3 locations. How many people are you? I mean, did we cover that? I don't remember you mentioned how many people you have in the company.
Yeah, we have 69 fantastic employees, Sean, over the 3 offices. Perfect. New York, North Carolina, South Carolina.
That's great. So, you got a good core group of about 69, 70 people, and you're ever expanding, I'm sure, and growing organically. Where do you think you're going to be in 5 to 10 years from now, Bill?
Oh, 5 to 10, I will be what I had prescribed earlier as a super regional, operating primarily east of the Mississippi, serving that New England to Florida industrial core. That I envision us, Sean, having a balance between the same sort of balance that we have today between waste processing, industrial, and remediation. Those, inclusive of the ER, small percentage of ER. I don't see that makeup of our business will change because those 4 tenants are the most attendant to each other. They're the most intertwined.
Yeah.
That's where we see most of the same girls and guys doing the work, as well as equipment to help support the work. So, I think that we will continue to provide value to our customers by self-performing the waste streams that we most commonly generate with our equipment, and that's non-haz, bulk
Yeah.
and containerized waste.
That's good. That's good. That's good to hear. Well, I mean, I think, with all the acquisition experience you've been through and merger experience you've been through, and I can't imagine that you're not going to achieve this goal because, you know how to do it. You've already been doing it. I'm excited to watch you grow over the next couple of years to see how you do expand the footprint and with acquisition and organic growth. I think it's going to be exciting. Um, how does someone get a hold of you and or someone at Terra Nova if they want to reach out and say, hey Bill, I want to work with you, I want to get a quote, I need to, I want to try you out on a project, I've got work that I need help with. How do we get a hold of you?
So right on our website, Sean, there's several emails. There's info@tnsolutions.co. There's customer service at tnsolutions.co, all available on our website. And then I'm sure you'll have a chance to share my email information on some sort of.
Yeah, we'll put it up on my website and get that also connected through LinkedIn, and they'll be able to get a hold of you for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
but all of the information that all the email addresses from our website, those eventually come past my desk. As a former coming up through the sales piece of our industry, remediation and sales, I'm heavily involved in our sales and growth efforts. So it's likely that I will be involved.
The one to call.
Yeah.
Call them back. Oh, it's Bill. Hey, buddy.
Yeah,
I heard you on that podcast.
Sean, you were a target of mine back in the day on the sales side, right?
No, I know it. That's right. That's how we met. It was great. It's always been good to reconnect with you, Bill, and I'm really excited to see what you guys are going to do in the future. I'm sure we'll be in touch and stay connected, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Sean, thanks a lot for having me.
All right, buddy. Good call. And we're going to get this out here in the next couple of days, and I want you to circulate it to your people.
You got it. Will do. I appreciate it, Sean. Thanks for the chat.
You bet. All right.